The late 1970s were a fascinating time for music. Where else could you have country songs, heavy rock, disco, R&B, electro-pop, jazz, and even novelty songs top the charts? Only the 70s, baby. Now, as we hurtle toward 50 years after their release, the great pop culture debate wants to determine the best songs of 1978. I myself was released in 1978, but the only charts I topped were the BMI Obesity Index. I'm your host, Eric Resniak. Please help me welcome my swingin' 70s panel. First, Night Fever, Night Fever. He knows how to do it. It's our Patreon sponsor for this episode. Please welcome back Derek Makita.
Got the wings of heaven on my shoes. I'm a dancing man. I just can't lose.
Well, listen, I do have a cowbell handy, although I'm not sure about its effectiveness against night fever specifically. But I'll use it if I have to. Next, you can tell by the way she uses her walk, she's a woman's woman. It's Carissa Claus.
No time to talk? I always have time to talk to you, Eric.
Oh, thank you, honey. I would ask how deep is your love, but that seems like a very personal question.
Yeah, we can talk about that later.
Oh, and finally, she's gonna getcha. It's special guest Beth D'Imperio.
One way or the other, I'm gonna find you, then I'll give you the slip.
Well, Blondie, that's one thing you have in common with 99% of the men I've slept with. And up in the producer booth, we have Curtis Creekmore, who is lighting up our lives, or at least the group chat. If you're curious about how we ended up with this 70s 16, become a Patreon supporter of the podcast or listen to the 3-minute primer available wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, you can head to greatpopculturedebate.com and find the listener bracket for this episode and a playlist of all the nominated songs so you can play along with us at home. With that out of the way, let's lay down, Sally, and kick off these debates. First up, it's a unanimous victory for 1 seed I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, which meant that 4 seed Les Freak by CHIC was freaked right out of the competition. Next, it's 2 very different songs about body positivity. The majority of the panel wants to advance Billy Joel's Just the Way You Are, a 3 seed, but Carissa thinks that 2 seed Fat Bottom Girls by Queen still does make the rock and world go round. Carissa, won't you take us home tonight and take us to those dirty ladies? Derek, do go changing Carissa's mind and push for Just the Way You Are. Carissa, please go first.
Yeah, I understand that I'm outnumbered here, and I get that. But I think that the song deserves at least some discussion because, as you mentioned, body positivity. This is a love song to curvy girls, and we are here for it. This reached number 11 on the UK singles and only as high as 24 on the Billboard 100. It's clearly not the most popular Queen song. But it's up against a Billy Joel song that, frankly, I find a little boring. And there is a direct correlation from Fat Bottom Girls to Big Bottom in Spinal Tap to Baby Got Back. The Baby Got Back ran because Fat Bottom Girls walked. So it deserves some flowers here, even if I'm not going to sway some votes from Billy Joel.
And I'll further continue that line to Mika's Big Girl You Are Beautiful, which is basically a 2000s version of this song, and I love it.
I feel like after Baby Got Back, it just sort of exploded into a whole bunch of directions because we've got Megan Thee Stallion. There's a lot more booty love in culture now, and I feel like it can all be traced back this way.
I love that. And I love this song. I do want to check. Beth, has Carissa swayed you, or are you going to stick with Billy Joel here?
I'm still sticking with Billy Joel.
Yeah. Derek, how about you?
Yeah, I'm sticking with Billy Joel.
So I'll say this. I just sang Just the Way You Are at karaoke this weekend, and it was, the room got into it. It was wonderful. But Fat Bottom Girls is a banger of a song. It really is. One of my personal rubrics for this, does it make me want to shake my titties? And Fat Bottom Girls does. That's going to make you want to do one of these. You can't see, this is an audio medium, but like, it is a great shake it song. And it's just, again, no other time period but the 1970s could this song exist. You did a great job.
Truly.
Yeah. All right. With that being said, we are going to push Mr. William Joel and Just the Way You Are into round 2, and Fat Bottom Girls will be going out. Next, the majority is currently leaning towards 4 seed One Way or Another by Blondie, but Derek thinks it's all in 1 seed I'm Every Woman by Chaka Khan. Derek, whatever you want, whatever you need, it's got to be in your argument because Chaka is in danger, girl. I will explain why, one way or another, I want Blondie to advance. Derek, I'm going to have you go first.
We've spoken several times about how Chaka Khan's I'm Every Woman is a disco classic from the very peak of 70s disco. And in fact, it was Chaka's very first solo hit. It peaked at number 1 on the Hot Soul singles, and Rolling Stone rated it number 27 on its list of the 200 greatest dance songs of all time. It doesn't get much more perfect than this, to be perfectly honest. Not only is it a powerful song, it has pop culture staying power, both in this version and in Whitney's cover from the 90s, which was a smash hit in its own right, but also somehow reintroduced audiences to Chaka's version all over again. So it's a timeless anthem of feminine empowerment and absolutely deserves to move forward. I get why you're all voting for the more unique pick from 1978 in one way or another. To me, though, it's just not my jam. I think I prefer Heart of Glass as the Blondie song that should move forward, but maybe that's also because Heart of Glass has a disco beat, which is just more in my wheelhouse.
Interesting. Carissa, has he swayed you, or are you sticking with Blondie?
I'm sticking with Blondie here, but I'm on the fence-ish, but I'm gonna stick with my gut initially and stay with Blondie.
Beth, where are you on this one?
I have to say, you almost have me tipping over, Derek, to the Chaka Khan side, but I have to stick with one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I get it.
I have to wonder if this version of the song is hurt by the Whitney version, which, when it's a cover and you have two very equally good versions, I think it kind of hurts both of them. You know what I mean? And I feel like when we did the Whitney Houston song episode, check that out, by the way, I think we probably dinged it because, like, well, the Chaka Khan version's perfectly good.
We did, and to be perfectly honest, in our disco episode, this song came up and was the same thing that we were talking about. How, is it real? Are we pushing it forward because it sticks more in our head because Whitney's also in there too?
So it sounds like we are going to move Blondie forward with one way or another, but to wrap this up, I just have to say, Khan, as in Chaka Khan. But next, the panel is currently horny for 2-seed Roxanne by The Police, but Carissa thinks we should chill out with 3-seed I Wanna Be Sedated by the Ramones. Carissa, you don't have 24 hours to go. You got about 90 seconds to make your case for Sedated. Beth, you don't have to turn the red light on, but you do need to hook for votes for Roxanne. Carissa, please go first.
Yeah, I'm surprised that this is 3 against 1 because I Want to Be Sedated is a 2.5 minute long karaoke banger. There is no downtime in this song. My friend Gwendolyn used to slay this on karaoke, and that was the first time I realized like how amazing it is. But even the instrumental breaks are filled with ba 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 ba. Like, you don't not sing the whole time. It's so fun. It's one of the best Ramones songs. It brings a completely different vibe to the bracket than anything we've currently encountered. The video has a very young Courtney Love in it, which is also she's the bride person in the background. If you watch the video, it's the band eating cereal, and they filmed it with the band moving really slow motion and everyone behind moving regular, and then they sped it up for the video, so it's all this frantic action in the background. Courtney Love is in the bride costume getting carried around. It's kind of bananas. It's just frenetic, and who can't relate to just get me to the airport, put me on a plane. I want to be sedated while this happens. Like, this is like pre everybody taking Xanax before they fly. Okay. Like, it's relatable. It's fast. It's quick. It's boppy. And I'm telling you, it should be in everybody's karaoke rotation because you don't even have to be a good singer to do it.
In the 2020s, raise your hand if you don't want to be sedated for the entirety of this godforsaken decade.
Exactly.
Yeah. Beth, has she changed your mind? Are you going to go ahead and stick with Roxanne?
I am definitely keeping the red light on, Roxanne.
Derek.
I am sticking with Roxanne, but I do think it's interesting that both of these songs feel very proto 80s.
Yes.
You could start to hear that 80s sound sneaking in.
Absolutely, yeah. And different kinds of 80s too.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think this is the first time we've ever discussed the Ramones on this podcast. If we've discussed them before, I don't remember it. I also think it might be the first time we've discussed the Police on this podcast, which I love. But we always talk about how there's that weird micro decade that's the 1988 to like 1991. And I think 78 to 82 was also a micro decade, but we didn't realize it at the time. And it's because of these weird intersections with music. I'm sticking with Roxanne. I enjoy this song by the Ramones. I like other Ramones songs better, but Roxanne, like, I can't vote against a song about a prostitute. Can't do it. It's part of my DNA. Can't do it. So Roxanne will continue into round 2. Next, it's a split decision between 2 songs about desperate living during the last days of disco. Half the panel wants to boogie at 4-seed Copacabana by Barry Manilow, and the other with 1-seed Stayin' Alive by Bee Gees. Derek, explain why, whether you're a brother or whether you're a mother, we're all still just staying alive. I will speechify about why music and passion were always in fashion at the Copacabana. I'll go first. This is a brutal matchup. This could be an F4 pairing, not a round 1 pairing. Both of these
Absolutely.
songs were massive in 1978, and even though they're wildly different tonally, they both cover the same kind of youthful nihilism at the time. Copacabana peaked at number 8 on the Billboard Top 40 charts. It hit number 2 in France, and the single was certified gold, selling more than 1 million copies. It won Manilow his only Grammy for Best Male Pop Vocal Performance at the 1979 awards. In the mid-80s, Manilow extrapolated the song into a TV musical loosely following the plot, and I desperately wish I could find that because I bet you that is a coked-out delight. Did you see it, Beth? You're nodding along. Did you see it? No?
No, I want to find that so badly too. As soon as I found out there was a TV show and a musical production.
Yeah. If someone finds the TV something, please send it to me. I'm desperate to watch it. But let's talk about that plot. This is a storytelling song. Although it's an upbeat Latin-inspired ditty, it's actually quite tragic, telling the story of showgirl Lola, inspired by Lola Falana, whose bartender boyfriend Tony is shot dead after he stops a ne'er-do-well patron from getting handsy with his lady. She then spends the next several decades drinking herself into oblivion as a kind of disco-era Miss Havisham, still haunting the scene of the crime. Stayin' Alive is quintessential to 1978. I cannot deny that. But my argument here is, at what other period could Copacabana be released as a hit record? Literally only the late 1970s. It's disco, yet it's kind of also a folk song. It's also kind of a jazz song. It even borders on novelty. It is incredibly dated, and yet I sang it at karaoke this weekend, and it got the joint jumpin' and the singing along singing. Barry Manilow did not come up through playing piano at the Continental Baths to go out in round 1. All right? He sucked a lot of dicks. He deserves to be in round 2. Derek, talk to us about Stayin' Alive.
Well, if you're going to put it like that, yeah, you called it. This is a tough matchup. The Bee Gees had so many hits that seemingly it would be hard to choose the best from 1978, quite frankly. We've talked before about what a pop culture touchstone this song is, representing not only disco, but as Carissa has previously eloquently pointed out, baby John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever walking down the street eating a slice of pizza.
Mm-hmm.
Visual.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it is iconic. It would be a real shame if we did not have a nod to Travolta moving forward in these brackets, given that there is no Grease representation in to get any of the votes. So Stayin' Alive peaked at number 1 on the US Billboard Hot 100 that year, so it's got solid credentials. Does it have the same camp appeal that Copacabana does? No, not necessarily, but it may just be one of the most archetypical and well-known of all the disco songs, and that has to count for something.
It's a really good argument. And if we're talking about camp and Stayin' Alive, please, the movie Stayin' Alive, the sequel to Saturday Night Fever from the 80s, you want to talk about a camp delight. Woohoo! But that's not here nor there. Carissa, are you with Stayin' Alive or are you with Copacabana?
I'm still with Stayin' Alive. I am following the Bee Gees all the way.
Mm-hmm.
Beth, where are you on this one?
I am firmly on Copacabana.
Yeah, I love your taste. I love your level of taste, Beth. Sadly, we're split, and seed-wise, Stayin' Alive is a 1, Copa is a 4. But I feel good about our decision, Beth. I think, history will prove that we were on the right side, but we will be moving Stayin' Alive into round 2. Next, the majority of the panel wants to crown Queen's double single, 2-seed We Will Rock You / We Are the Champions. But Carissa wants us to give her a break and instead put forward 3-seed Take a Chance on Me by ABBA. Carissa, try not to be alone when the pretty birds have flown for ABBA. Beth, go on and on and on and on about why Queen should rule over this matchup. Carissa, please go first.
Yeah, this one's kind of hard, and I understand why the deck is stacked against me, because Take a Chance on Me isn't probably the best ABBA song, I don't think, but they are so late 70s that I really wanted to see them on here. And if you recall from earlier, I defended Queen and Fat Bottom Girls. So in my ideal world, they're both still on the bracket. Take a Chance on Me reached number 1 in the UK and number 3 in the US. It was certified gold for 1 million sales. It was not nothing for them. It has this cool a cappella opening, and once again has a lot of ba-ba-bas during instrumentals. There's a lot of vocalizing in these songs, and it's a song of desperation, of having a long distance longing that you then tell the person about and just say, hey, you know, if you're ever single, hit me up, man. I'm here. I'm waiting. It is thirsty. And, you know, isn't that the result of all the disco dancing? Just all of that sex on the dance floor, but not happening. And then I'm sure there were some crazy love triangles. So I don't know. It just feels very of the time. And I think ABBA's fun and should be here in some representation.
I don't disagree with that at all. I know, Beth, you haven't had a chance to make any arguments yet. Are you upset if we just see if anybody's changed their mind?
No, that's fine. I can save them for the next round.
Are you sticking with Queen?
Absolutely.
Derek?
Yeah, I am sticking with Queen. I think I wish there were more ABBA songs to choose from, but ABBA is seemingly like early to mid 70s. By 78, they've got some really like quality pop hits, but they're sort of starting to peter out by that point.
Well, I think we need to do a best ABBA song because we haven't really done a lot on ABBA either, which is crazy. And again, audio medium, so you can't see producer Curtis clutching his non-existent pearls and saying, oh, yes. So I think that'll be coming. But in the meantime, we are going to continue to push Queen into round 2. At least one Queen song, well, technically 2, will make it into round 2. Next, another even split, this time between 1-seed Heart of Glass by Blondie and 4-seed Rock Lobster by the B-52s. Beth, tell us, Once You Had a Love, and it was a gas. And that's why Heart of Glass should continue into round 2. I'll dive down, 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 and pull up not a rock, but a rock lobster. I'm going to go first. Let me say, Blondie and Heart of Glass should 100% advance here. It is an essential song of 1978. It has far more cultural cachet. Rock Lobster is, in comparison, wild, wacky, a niche song. But once we have never discussed on this podcast, and by God, we're going to do it now, look out for the bikini whale. How to even explain this song? I think it has to be called a novelty song. It's a 1950s surf rock throwback in the late 70s. It's a party song. It's a dance song. It's fucking weird, but it's also so catchy in a way that really only the B-52s could be. The lyrics are basically nonsense as lead singer Fred Snyder just shouts out observations and made up animal names, while Kate Pearson and Cindy Wilson back up with high-pitched keening. It's wild, but it's also so cool, and it launched the career of one of the most endearing alt-rock acts of the 20th century. Rock Lobster also has surprisingly pop culture reach. It peaked number 56 on the Billboard Hot 100, but it was actually number 1 in Canada. Was performed live on Saturday Night Live in 1980, and believe it or not, is reportedly what inspired John Lennon to come out of musical retirement to record what would be his final album, Double Fantasy, in 1980. And it's still relevant. In 2024, the hockey team in Athens, Georgia, which is where the band was founded, was named the Rock Lobsters in honor of this song. With that being said, Derek, would you mind pitching in on Heart of Glass?
Yeah. So this is truly one of my favorite Blondie songs, not only because it has a great disco beat, but also because this is without question their biggest hit of 1978. Debbie Harry herself has gone on to record on the record saying that it's the song she's most proud of having written. And it's seen a ton of incarnations. The Euro disco Giorgio Moroder inspired sound is what we've come to know and love. In it, you can also start to hear the beginnings of new wave, which makes this song even more relevant to pop culture. It also represented a unique sound for Blondie in that it wasn't universally embraced by disco fans, and it was seen as a, quote, a sellout by Blondie's punk fans. So this makes it more special in my estimation.
Totally get that. Beth, where are you on this one?
I am still with Heart of Glass.
All right. Carissa, where are you on this one?
I'm with Rock Lobster.
Well, Heart of Glass is a 1-seed, and I would be throwing my vote to Heart of Glass either way. It has to go forward. But Rock Lobster is a wild song, and I'm glad we got to talk about it here. But we will be moving Heart of Glass into round 2. Finally, in round 1, it's another unanimous victory. This one for 2-seed September by Earth, Wind, and Fire, which proved to be more elemental than 3-seed Big Shot by Billy Joel. And that's the end of round 1. We're going to take a quick break to hunt down that saxophone we hear playing on Baker Street. We'll be right back after these messages.
Listen up, all you groovy cats and cool kittens. Are you tired of being the silent spectator in the grand circus of pop culture? Well, fret not, my fabulous friends. It's time to strut your stuff and shake up the status quo by taking our polls. Let your opinions sashay down the runway of pop culture history like a fierce drag queen at Mardi Gras. Trust me, darlings, it's more thrilling than a game of Twister with the cast of the Brady Bunch. So stop sipping your lukewarm tea and join the fabulous fun. Head to greatpopculturedebate.com and find the polls section. You know I love a good poll.
And we are back for round 2 of our Best Song of 1978 debate. Before we get into the Elite 8, I want our panelists to share their social media accounts, what else they're working on, and how they got introduced to 70s music. First, Derek Makita, our Patreon sponsor, thank you. Why did you pick this topic?
I just think it is a seminal year for music in general. There's so many different genres going on in 1978 that are either in like their genesis or coming to their peak, and disco was out there, and you know how much I love disco. So 78 was an amazing year, and I also immediately thought of our guest panelist to bring on because she was born in 1978. So there was no one else I wanted to invite to do this.
Oh, this actual genuine emotion. I don't know what show you think this is, but that's very sweet. And thank you for bringing Beth. You've been a delight. Derek, can you tell us about your socials? What else you're working on?
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at DRKMKT. I don't have any other projects going on, but how I got into 70s music, my father used to be a disc jockey at a local bar and also at parties, and he would be spinning 45s, and I'd be helping him schlep all the disc jockey equipment and his milk crates full of records to his gigs. So I was always around music, especially music of the 70s. So it has a special place in my heart.
It builds character, schlepping around those milk crates.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Beth, our special guest, as the cousin of Derek Makita, do you remember his father being a disc jockey and all of that good stuff?
I remember more of his uncle being the disc jockey.
Oh,
so much
That's true. He was, yeah.
Interesting. So tell us, what are your socials? What are you working on? And how did you get into 70s music?
I can't say I'm on my socials very often other than watching other people, but you can find me on all the socials at bgear110.
Great.
And that's gear like the actual bicycle gear.
Got it.
How I first got introduced to music of the 70s, I would say, is because I danced. I was in dancing school pretty much 7 days a week by the time I was 7 or 8. And I just got exposed to so much music, but particularly fell in love with all of the different sounds of the 70s. The disco, the funk, the punk, the rock, and getting to make art out of it all.
I love it. What kind of dance did you do?
Ballet, tap, jazz, modern, all the things.
Fabulous. You were really
yes. Shout out to Barbara Bruno's Totowa Dance Center in Totowa, New Jersey.
Barbara.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for being part of this particular topic. So thank you very much. Carissa Kloss, what are your socials? What else are you working on? How did you get into 70s music?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Carissa Kloss. But if you really want to interact, you should join the Patreon and become a supporter of the podcast. We have a really hoppin' Discord, and I'm pretty active there. Working on a lot of other great podcast research. We got some fun stuff coming up. And I am the only child of not the 70s who's on this, but I am barely a child of the 80s. I was born in 81. So a lot of these songs were kind of on the radio or in pop culture. But I grew up with my parents listening to country, like Reba and Dolly, like 80s country. And then once I had my own agency, I was really into all the 90s stuff, like first Janet and Paula Abdul and Mariah Carey, and then like the 90s alternative. So part of the 90s was a weird 70s resurgence. I wore a lot of bell bottoms. I wore a lot of, very long collared shirts made of polyester that smelled terrible, but I got them all for, $3 at the thrift store. And part of that was just like disco, all the things. Saturday Night Fever. I had a shirt from Hot Topic with the dance from Saturday Night Fever on it. So I think it was sort of like a weird counterculture thing that I wanted to lean into. And there's just so much great stuff from this era that has lasting power. So yeah, it's a roundabout way to some great stuff. And hopefully some of the people listening to this who maybe aren't familiar with it will check out the playlist and maybe explore some of the full albums that these bands did beyond these really great singles.
Yeah, and just to give that shout out, we will have the playlist not only of the top 16 on the website, but we'll also put in our other critic picks from our panelists. So it's going to be a fire playlist, and you should definitely check that out. So it's funny that you mentioned the 90s because I also feel like that's when I really got exposed a lot to the 70s music.
Yeah.
So I think specifically when Muriel's Wedding came out, that is 100% what got me into ABBA. I think of the Quentin Tarantino films, 100% exposed me to some of that rock stuff from that period. I think some of the best of albums from Blondie's best of album 100% was like injected into my veins when I was a teenager. So I do think it's funny. I think the 70s are derided now as being this very cheap and very predatory decade. I actually think there's a lot of similarities between politically and socially what was going on in the 70s, the late 70s, and what's going on right now in America. But I think the music is unimpeachable, and I'm so glad that we're talking about these songs. For me, you can find me at Eric Resniak on Instagram, but really just message at Great Pop Culture Debate on Insta or TikTok, or at GPCD on Mastodon. But what you really must do right this very minute is sign up for our weekly newsletter. It's new every Monday at noon, and it tells you about everything new in pop culture that week. Sign up by finding the link on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com or via our link tree on any of our social media accounts. With that being said, let's move into round 2, which should be good because Meatloaf told me that 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I'll be here all week. Tip your waiter. Do not try the meatloaf. First, it's another unanimous victory for Gloria Gaynor and 1 seed I Will Survive, which proved more resilient than Billy Joel's 3 seed Just the Way You Are. But that being said, Derek, you did want to pay your respects to Just the Way You Are.
I did, because this was Billy Joel's first top 10 U.S. single, which topped the chart for the entire month of January in 1978, and it would eventually go on to win Record of the Year and Song of the Year at the 1979 Grammys. Billy doesn't play this all very often because he wrote it for his first wife, Elizabeth Weber, and he just doesn't have it leaves a bad taste in his mouth because of its connection to her. Despite all that, it's become an easy listening classic and has been chosen by countless couples over the last 40 plus years as their wedding song. It's evergreen. It's Billy Joel at some of his best, and it definitely deserved to go this far.
It 100% did. I don't know if I mentioned it on this main episode, but we will be doing the best Billy Joel single for season 11 of this podcast. So if you have not already submitted your poll for that, please go online to see if it's still open. Your choices actually discuss the 16 songs that we'll be talking about. Next, the panel is currently split between 4 seed One Way or Another and 2 seed Roxanne by The Police. I have to stop doing that. I have to stop doing it. Curtis's face is aghast. By the way, I'm a member of the Boston Gay Men's Chorus. Just kidding. Beth, hit the host roll to speak on Roxanne. I will drive by your house to make sure that the rest of you are voting for One Way or Another. Beth, why don't you go first?
So everyone loves a hooker with a heart of gold.
Yeah, sitting right
and
here,
the
Beth.
men who fall in love with these hookers. Sting was inspired to write this by watching the prostitutes outside of a seedy hotel in Paris, from which they were going to perform out of in their early days. And he named this heroine after Cyrano's unrequited love, Roxanne, from Rostand's Cyrano de Bergerac. And I'm sure I butchered that.
Nope, that's exactly right.
But I also want to note that Roxanne was also Cyrano's cousin in that story. Just a side note.
Oh.
But released in April 7th of 78, this was the second song released on their debut album, Outlandos d'Amor. But this actually was the leading single from the album. The song also had the distinction of creating what they called the butt piano chord. Sting created this chord when he accidentally sat on the keyboard during their rehearsals. And so that haunting sound that you hear at the beginning, along with the laughter, which was the laughter in the studio, are heard at the beginning of that. It is a complete rock classic that still receives over 242,000 streams daily to this day.
Wow.
It was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2008, reached number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, and then was also the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, listed it as a top song on the 500 songs that shaped rock and roll. I also have to note that it has been remade over 30 times, including a jazz rendition by George Michael, a full symphony version by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, and my personal favorite, a children's lullaby edition on Twinkle Twinkle Little Rock Star.
Oh my God.
Stop it. Stop. I live. Amazing. Beth, you know I love it when people come on the show and they bring the facts. So excellent job. Well done. I will go ahead and speak on one way or another from Blondie. We've rarely, if ever, discussed Blondie on this podcast. And that's remarkable because I love that band. Yet over 4 years and 120 plus episodes, we've barely referenced this band. We'll acknowledge right now that the song was released as a single in 1979, not 1978, but it was out in the world that year as part of Blondie's legendary Parallel Lines album. It peaked on the American Billboard 100 at number 24. It was ranked by Rolling Stone at number 298 on the 500 greatest songs of all time, and it is credited by some as the song that took Blondie from the club act to arena ready. That's because the song absolutely scorches. It was a very different, much more aggressive sound for the band, from those insistent, gritty opening riffs to the searing lead guitar line to lead singer Debbie Harry's almost possessed-sounding chorus. The attitude was intentional, as the song was inspired by a stalker that Harry had in the early 1970s who was so relentless that she had to completely relocate to avoid him. The song has been featured in countless movies and TV shows over the years and had an ill-considered cover by British boy band One Direction in the 2010s. But do not let that dissuade you from voting from it here after that kick-ass bridge when Harry comes back in even more demanding and that manic ending that just keeps building and building. Who else could do this? When else could this be released? Carissa, where are you?
I'm with Blondie here. I think this is really random, but this is such a great bracket that it's really hard to make decisions. So part of my rubric is this a good song for karaoke? And one way or another is a great song for karaoke. There is a key change. There is that weird bridge that's sort of like a spoken word part. And Roxanne just gets really repetitive toward the end. And also, just generally, I would rather hear people butcher one way or another than the Roxanne of it all. So I'm with Blondie here.
Like your host every time he's introduced that song during this conversation?
Yes, but you are tonally not challenged.
I know, so I really don't have an excuse. Derek, where are you on this one?
I'm still with Roxanne. I put my red light on.
He put the red light on his microphone. So we are split 50-50, and let's see with the seeds. Roxanne is a 2 seed, and one way or another is a 4 seed, which means that Roxanne will continue. I do love that Beth told us that Sting basically invented the butt dial with this song, and I think that that's hilarious. And we barely ever talked about Sting and the Police. I don't know any other time we've ever talked about them.
That's
so
crazy.
we
Wow.
need to get ourselves together, ladies and gentlemen. This is unconscionable. Next, the bulk of the panel wants to keep Staying Alive with the Bee Gees, but I think Queen can lead the charge with We Will Rock You / We Are the Champions. Carissa, I'm running out of Bee Gees puns for this debate, but do something related to an unintelligible line about the New York Times as you stump for Alive. I will endeavor to get a sing-along going for Queen. I'll go first. So first, it's important to understand, why are these two songs being lumped together? They were released as one single. And when the actual album came out, many radio stations just played them back to back without even a break. Basically, it was seamless, 2 songs as one unit. So that's why they're considered as one. Some wild facts about these songs. We Will Rock You is almost entirely a cappella, with only the stomps and claps as accompaniment until the guitar comes in about 30 seconds to the end. The single is certified 6 times platinum. That's more than 6 million copies sold. In 2022, the song was performed by Queen, with Adam Lambert fronting, as Queen Elizabeth and Paddington Bear tapped their teacups to the beat from inside Buckingham Palace. Bands including U2, Guns N' Roses, My Chemical Romance, Nirvana, and Celine fucking Dion have all performed the song as part of their tours. For We Are the Champions, in 2011, a team of scientific researchers concluded that the song is in fact the catchiest pop song of all time based on neuroscientific data, mathematical equations, and cognitive psychology. That's not a joke. That's literally something that they came up with. With that being said, Chris, I want you to talk about Staying Alive.
Well, 2 direct rebuttals. First of all, the lyrics are, "We can try to understand the New York Times effect on man," and like that's a philosophical question right
It's
there.
philosophical, yeah.
And if you want to talk about life saving, Staying Alive is around 103 beats per minute, which is exactly the rate that should be used for performing CPR. It is the song that people are told to think of while performing chest compressions. I am not joking. This
No, I
was
believe
on an
you.
episode of The Office and Grey's Anatomy. So, literally life saving, this song.
This
It
is
is
news you can use, ladies and gentlemen. This is what
truly.
you get for listening to the Great Pop Culture Debate.
This song is disco royalty. I don't know how much we can overhash this, but it was on the Rolling Stone 500 Greatest Songs of All Time. It was 189 in 2004, and when they updated the list in 2021, it moved up to number 99. Staying power, people. The longer it was in existence, the higher up it moved. That's pretty incredible. It is also number 9 on AFI's 100 Years, 100 Songs, Best Songs in Cinema, because of, as Derek mentioned, the opening sequence of Saturday Night Fever. It is iconic. This song is so intertwined in your understanding of the film, the era, the character, just the general vibe. So, yeah, literally life-saving, and also has immense cultural staying power.
We often say something gives us life in the gay community, but this song literally is giving us life.
Truly, if you take nothing else from this episode, just next time, someone's having a heart attack when you're at dinner, just think, you're right there.
There you have it. Derek, where are you on this one?
I mean, I didn't know we were going to go all Neil deGrasse Tyson on this episode. You guys made it real difficult for me. I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with Queen. I think I'm going to stick with Queen here. Yeah.
Beth, where are you on this?
I'm feeling Derek's pain. I've been swayed both sides, but I think I gotta stick with Staying Alive.
So I believe that Staying Alive is a 1 seed and Queen is a 2 seed, which means that Staying Alive will continue it by its title into the final 4.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, in round 2, it is literally heartbreak season as 1 seed Heart of Glass by Blondie seems poised to take the fall against 2 seed September by Earth, Wind, and Fire. But we haven't even spoken about September yet. Beth, Body Ya, do you remember why September is a great song? Tell us.
Do you remember the 21st night of September? Because that's when love is changing minds of pretenders while we were chasing the clouds away.
That's beautiful.
It is a funky, groovy track. It dares you to try to not get up and dance. It is
challenge accepted, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Exactly. The song has remained a firm favorite since it was first released, thanks to its catchy melody and its timeless lyrics. It was the band's largest commercial success, reaching number 1 on Billboard's Hot R&B charts and number 8 on the overall Hot 100. It was also added to the Library of Congress's National Recording Registry. It is the list of recordings that are culturally, historically, and aesthetically important of 2018. I think I got that all correct. Rolling Stone also slated this number 65 on their 500 greatest songs of all time.
Hmm.
But I mean, aside from that, you just hear that hook, that ba-dee-ya-dee-ya, which no one knows what it means. And you are just transported to 1978. Getting up, getting ready to dance, and enjoy a night at the disco.
It's true. Everything you just said is true. Derek, are you sticking with September?
I think I am. It's just I know I stumped for Heart of Glass before, and Heart of Glass is kind of my pick for Blondie, but I think I am with September here.
Carissa, where are you on this one?
Yeah, I'm with September.
Yeah, it breaks my heart literally, not just because it's a Heart of Glass, but September is the better song, I think, of the two of them. And I think it is certainly more emblematic of 1978. And there you go. With that, we have our final four. Hot damn. We're going to take a quick break to viciously insult short people with Randy Newman. Seriously, what was that dude's problem? We love short kings. We will be right back after these messages. Do you want to watch more TV? Sure, we all do. But sometimes you just don't have the time to tune in, and you're still itching to know what happened. Well, for $0 a day, you can check out the Great Pop Culture Debate episode recaps. We cover some of your favorite television franchises so you can stay up to date without even watching. Head over to the blog section of greatpopculturedebate.com and make sure you never miss a moment. And we are back with the final four of our best song of 1978 debate. At this point in the show, I always like to take a step back and see where we ended up, if it's where I thought we would. Genuinely had no idea where this one was going because there were 16 great songs, and you could have made really strong cases for at least 8 of them being here. At least 8 of them. We have I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, a 1 seed. That's disco. Roxanne by The Police, a 2 seed. That's rock. Stayin' Alive by the Bee Gees, a 1 seed. Also disco. September by Earth, Wind, and Fire, a 2 seed. I would say that's funk R&B. So, I mean, you got a nice cross section of the 70s there. I think not represented that much is more of the alt kind of rock that's maybe missing, but overall I'm not mad about it. Also, You Light Up My Life by Debbie Boone. Justice for Debbie Boone. We're gonna go around the horn with our first letter in the alphabet. Beth, I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor or Roxanne by The Police. Where are you going?
I'm still on Roxanne.
All right, Roxanne. And I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna make that sound. Derek, where are you?
I Will Survive.
Carissa.
Yeah, I'm with I Will Survive. It's the karaoke-ness, the karaoke friendliness of both of these songs. Which would I rather hear performed by a not gay men's chorus member? It's going to be Gloria Gaynor.
I am reminded of our best disco song debate, and I think that part of Derek's rubric for picking this topic was he wanted to relitigate decisions that were made in that debate that he thought were wrong. And
Maybe.
I believe one of those decisions may have been I Will Survive. Is that correct?
Maybe.
Now, that is not why I'm choosing to vote for I Will Survive here, but it's not why I'm choosing to vote for it here. I think these are both great songs, and I'm so glad that we got to talk about The Police. Seriously, I literally don't think, maybe we've talked about every little thing she does as magic, but like almost nothing else. And I love Sting and The Police. So it's been a great time to talk about it. And Derek actually did a wonderful top 10 list on songs about sex work that's on our website, and this is prominently featured in there. But I'm giving it to Gloria Gaynor and I Will Survive, so that will continue to the final two. We've barely talked about it, so I'm going to ask my panel to come up with your very good reasons as to why it should win this sucker in about 5 seconds. Next, it's Stayin' Alive by the Bee Gees, a 1 seed, versus September by Earth, Wind, and Fire, a 2 seed. I'm going to start the back of the pack. Carissa, where are you on this one?
See, this is where just the personal preference comes out. This is hard because the first pairing that we just voted on were 2 like singy songs. These 2 are dance songs. Either one of these, I'm going to get up, right? It's really tricky, but my soul, my heart, it leans Bee Gees, it leans disco. So Stayin' Alive is my ultimate pick here.
Derek, where are you on this one?
I feel you with that. I do think, though, that September is bringing something a little bit more unique here. as far as late 70s dance. So I'm going to stick with September.
Ooh, delicious. Beth, where are you on this one?
Yeah, I have to stick with September too. It is like I cannot hear that song and not smile and almost immediately get up and twirl and dance wherever I am.
So I'm going to confess, when you were talking, Carissa, I was just like, I think that Staying Alive is probably the correct answer because that album, that movie owned that year in a way that was like unbelievable. It just had a chokehold on it. But I think as though I was really thinking more about the album and the movie more than the song. And if I'm looking at it strictly song versus song, which is a better song now, which is a better song in 78, I actually think if I had to choose between putting one of those songs on right now, I think I would go with September by Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I totally get it. This is probably the hardest pairing for me, this whole bracket.
Yeah. I think both of these are awesome songs. They could be a final two and it would be completely accurate, but I am going to go ahead and tip it to September here, which is, I did not see it going this way, but here we are. And our final two is I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, a 1 seed, versus September by Earth, Wind, and Fire, a 2 seed. I'm going to start in the middle of actually, I'm not. I want our Patreon sponsor to go last. So Beth, is it going to be I Will Survive or September?
I feel like I'm in a losing battle, but I am sticking with September all the way.
There is nothing more quintessential than being a guest on the Great Pop Culture Debate and being in a losing battle.
It's true.
It's really just part of the experience. Yeah. Thank you. So you're with September. Carissa, where are you on this one?
So I think I Will Survive is a really great breakup song, queer anthem, feminist empowerment song. Is it the best song of 1978? I don't know. I think I'm actually going to vote for September here.
All right. So we're at split right now. Derek Makita, where are you?
Yeah. So I don't want to say this is a relitigation of our disco episode, but it kind of is, because for folks who have listened to that episode, and for those who haven't, spoiler alert, I Will Survive almost won the whole Megillah during our best disco song episode. It is very iconic for 1978. It is the pinnacle of disco's popularity here in the U.S. It's an anthem of empowerment, not only for women and queer people, but basically for everyone who's ever been wronged in the matters of the heart. It spent 3 consecutive weeks at #1 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100, and it won a Grammy for Best Disco Recording. And it has been certified platinum. It would get my vote here, but I think I'm going to go with September.
I love I didn't see this coming, which is what's more 1978 than not seeing something coming, right?
Also shocked.
Yeah. Can you tell me why you're throwing it to September there?
It's just, you know what? I think it would almost be expected that we would put a disco song at the very top. I would be disappointed if we didn't have a song that was danceable at the top of this. I think September checks that box. I think I Will Survive is the more obvious answer, but I think I Will Survive is maybe more evergreen than it is just like, oh, I immediately associate it with 1978. I think September, it just has that funky feeling of 78 in a way that some of these other songs that we've talked about do not.
I feel like September has had a cultural renaissance recently that I Will Survive has been ever present, right? Yeah. You're always going to hear that song at Pride. You're going to play it on a breakup, playlist. Like it's always kind of been there. But September has suddenly, like, I don't know, Gen Z loves this song. They really love this song. And it kind of put it back on the forefront for me and a lot of the rest of us. And it's really fun. And like Beth had said way early on, like the lyrics are just like evergreen. They're about like nothing. It's about a date. It's about a time and a feeling. That's not necessarily of an era, but how is that also not perfectly late 70s? It's such an interesting blend of funk and disco and danceability that I think it really, if we're talking micro generations, like maybe that's the micro generation of this year, is exactly the sound of that song.
Yeah. And 1978, September of 1978 in particular, gave us our dear leader, Eric Resniak. So
I was going to say I was literally born in September of 1978.
Iconic.
The
It wasn't the
reason-
21st, was it?
No, it was a little bit earlier. A little
Thank
bit earlier
God.
than that, yeah. But I was going to say that wasn't going to be the reason that I was going to vote for it. But I do think that September has a universality. It's universal.
We knew what you meant.
Because I Will Survive is about heartbreak. It's about being wronged. But September, it's about just getting funky. You put that on at a wedding and everybody's going to get on the floor with Auntie. You know what I mean? There is something about it that speaks to you and the depths of her soul. And that's, I think, the correct answer. So there you have it, folks. Our pick for the best song of 1978 is September by Earth, Wind, and Fire. Do you agree? Do you think our opinions are just dust in the wind? Tell us how you really feel by leaving a comment on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com or find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or Mastodon. While you're there, make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast so you can hear about what new debates are coming soon, vote in open polls, and even decide which topics we tackle next. If you really like this episode, please take a minute to like and rate it on whatever platform you listen on. I want to say thank you to my panel. At first I was afraid, I was petrified, but we all made it happen, and thank you for listening. If you love what you heard, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you get even more exclusive content and episodes a whole day early. We hope you have a good one, and remember, everyone is entitled to their wrong opinion. Badia!